All right, folks, welcome back, welcome back. Can we just give a thank you to, they may not hear us, but everybody that got all the coffee and treats ready for us is awesome. Love it. All right, I come bearing gifts here in this session. This morning, we're doing a little bit of a crash course on what Amy and I call visionary parenting, which is catching a vision to spiritually bless our kids. And this, the deep dive is in our visionary parenting book. Now, we first wrote this book when our oldest child was 12. And we don't recommend writing parenting books when your oldest child is 12. So a couple years ago, the publisher came back and said, you know, you've got older kids now, can you do revised and expanded second edition? So we're like, yeah, that's a good idea. So to do a second edition of a book, you start with the first book, and you have to read your book to revise it and expand it. So I'm reading this, and I'm like, honey, this is good stuff. We should be doing this. Remember, it's a living seminar, and I saw a meme on the internet the other day. It said, parents of young kids write books on parenting. Parents of older kids write books on prayer. And I thought that was a really good one. But who would like this one as a gift? Visionary, whoa, front, okay. Benefits of the front row. One of the other great ways to stay in touch with our ministry, if you're a podcasty person, Amy and I have a podcast every Monday called Family Vision. And our resource table is covered with all these little square cards with these QR codes. You can just go to your podcast service and type in Family Vision, or if you scan the little QR code, then that will help you get connected. And that's one of the ways that we'd love to continue to provide you some encouragement from across the miles. Okay. Well, Pastor Luke and the team asked me if I would do a session on tech and faith and family. Once again, this is a living seminar in the sense that we are trying to navigate this world with two kids in college. What does tech look like for them? A high schooler, a junior higher, and an elementary school student. So if you are feeling like you are in process and learning and trying to figure this out, that's where we are too. And I want to talk just a little bit about tech today. Here's the thing. For those of us parents and grandparents, our kids have tech, which was science fiction when we were growing up. Literally science fiction. You remember Star Trek? And he has, I don't even remember what it's just called, a communicator. Any Star Trek nerds out there? Is that okay? So he's got his little communicator. When he's down on the planet, he can talk to the ship, and it looks shockingly like, right, a little cell phone. Okay. Uhura here, oh, you can't quite see that with the light. That's okay. But he's got a flat thing in his hand right here, which has a video screen on it. What is that? Yeah, it's a tablet or an iPad, right? Oh, here's Uhura. Here she is. And she's got this thing in her ear. Yeah, right. Well, she's got a Bluetooth thing in her ear. And then here, Captain Kirk is having a video. He's FaceTiming, right? Or Skyping or whatever it is. None of these things were real. Do you understand? And we're like, oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be cool. All right, I got a video here for you.
Miniature transmitter. All right.
Come in, Chief Quimby.
Yes. What time is it?
8:29.
Thank you. It's all right.
This is 86 reporting into control.
How's it going?
I have an emergency situation.
Relay the information to headquarters.
Enterprise. Order of the ship's computer library records.
Jason, can you read me?
I read you.
This is Secret Agent Rock Slag.
Okay, partner, let's make a little spectacle of ourselves.
Anything particular in mind?
The atomic punch.
There's only one man who can get us out of here in time.
I'll be down right away. I'm on my way.
We're on our way.
I'm on my way. We're on our way.
I'm on my way.
All right, so this is the world like our kids are actually growing up in. More information. It's just instantly available, right? Your kids, your grandkids ask you a question, Right, we were talking the other night, just here in the church, how far away is the sun from the earth, right? And it's the word, the 93 came into the play, but is it 93, 100,000, 93? Hey Siri, how far? And there's the answer. I think, the question is, has it made us more intelligent? You use the maps on your phone to get to places. So I use the maps. I say, here's where I'm going. Sometimes I'll be like, kids' school. Go. I've gone there 1,000 times. And what's happened is like the hard drive part of my brain that keeps maps, it's gone. It's just eliminated. Now, again, I tell myself, well, maybe there's traffic, in the 1 mile trip or something like that. If you want to have, here are some great conversations. I'm going to encourage you to have a couple conversations with your kids and grandkids just to freak them out. Parents, tell your kids what you used to do if you were out driving and you didn't know how to get somewhere or got lost. Just tell them what you had to do, right, in that situation. Like go to the gas, either you're going to get a map out of the glove compartment or you're literally going to a gas station to ask someone for directions. Here's another one. When you were a teenager and you wanted to write something down and send it to someone else, what was the process for doing that? How did you send words to another person? Right? Paper, pen, stamps, envelopes. My kids, we were driving a couple months ago. I was with Ray and Rush, and I said, hey, ask me a question about growing up. They said, well, tell us about TV growing up. I'll tell you about TV. So first of all, I told them about The Thing, which we call the TV, which they had never seen before, the big, heavy deal. And then the channels, the 13, right, and the UHF dial, right, with the rabbit ears. And then I told them about the TV guide. The TV guide comes in the mail once a week, and that says, so if you want to watch the A-Team, well, on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, you have to turn the thing to 5 or whatever it's on. And I said, if you didn't turn it to 5 at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, you're not watching it. It's over. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, that's when it's on. That's when it's coming in. And if you don't watch it, you can never watch it, probably ever again. You missed that one. They're like, just stream it later. Like, no, there's no streams except for in the backyard. That's a stream. It's the only stream that's in the house. Okay. So a couple of principles here as we talk about tech in our families. First one is this. It starts with us. It starts with us. Today, this session is not, hey, kids, get off your phones. Hey, kids, turn that off. This is all of us. The principle here is that we can't lead our kids in a direction we're not going in ourselves. If we're not learning to have a healthy, proper relationship with all the gadgets in our lives, we're going to have a hard time teaching our kids to do that too. Rushbo over here, who's now 8, was 2 at the time, and I was walking around the house with Rush, and I was on my phone, right, checking my email, checking the news, checking the sports, and he's talking to me, Daddy, this, da-da-da. And I'm going, yeah, really not listening to what the little 2-year-old's talking to me about. He reaches across, he grabs my face, he pulls my face this way, and he says, Daddy, look at my eyes when I'm talking to you. Ouch. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was being so disrespectful to the little guy that he's trying to talk to me, and my nose is glued to the phone. So the question, like for us as parents, is do we take our phone out every time it beeps, every time it buzzes? And then we're upset with the kids if they're taking their phone out every time it beeps, every time it buzzes here. And this is a struggle for me. I find that if I don't want to do that, I physically have to put my phone somewhere else. So take it upstairs, put it on my desk. Take it upstairs, put it next to my bed, and have, whether it's half an hour, or dinner time or something like that, where it's just physically not attached to me. Because if it's attached to me, I may allow that to intrude what's happening in front of me. There's so much we could talk about here as far as like setting an example for our kids when it comes to tech and media and all that. Like, what does our DVD library say to our kids and grandkids? In other words, the movies that are there. What does that tell them about what entertains us? So you may be familiar with this scripture from Philippians 4. It says, finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. I had a friend say, well, I don't think that really applies to like what we watch or what we listen to. I'm like, well, if it doesn't apply to that, what might it apply to? It seems like it's a fairly direct, correlation for Christians to be taking really seriously, right, what we're putting into our minds. Now, you might say, okay, Rob, DVD case at home, we don't have a DVD player anymore, right? That's old school for the old school. Okay, when your child, if they open up Netflix, they get to see recently watched, right? Or your Amazon Prime, or what does your recently watched queue tell your kids about what matters to you? I had a parent say to me, oh, no problem. I go in and I delete my recently watched stuff if I don't want my kids to see that. I'm like, all right, I just don't think we're moving in the right direction with that mindset. Here's another example. Do your kids ever see your conscience on display? Here's what I mean. It's family movie night, grandkids are over, trying to find something to watch, right? And so we go to Netflix or we go wherever and we're like, scroll. Here's a cue. The deeper you scroll into Netflix, it's more like the bowels of the entertainment world. So that's a place to start. But you see a movie, and again, it used to be like at Blockbuster, physically, take it off the shelf, but you see a movie on your streaming service that you watched when you were a kid, your family watched when you were a kid. And it was great, right? It was great. It was this great family movie, and it's PG, all right, so that's pretty good. And you're like, oh, kids, I watched this when I was a kid. My family watched this. It's like a family movie. You'll love it. It's black and white. No, trust me, it's going to be awesome. We watched this. And you turn it on, and like the first scene, you don't really remember that part. Raise your hand if you've ever had this, and you are mortified at you're like, we watched this. And you're like, close your eyes. So here's my question. So you picked a movie that turns out wasn't a very good choice, right? A lot of inappropriate stuff. You didn't mean to, but you picked something that you're not real proud to show the kids now. So here's the question. What do you do then? Okay? Right then, do you say, hey, you know what? Dad made a mistake. Sorry, my memory of this one was different than what it is. I don't want to watch this. Let's find something else. In other words, like that my conscience was activated based on what we're trying to watch as a family. My kids then get to see my conscience. And the question is, do your kids ever see your conscience on display? So sometimes, they've got this new service called VIII, which will edit your streaming shows as they come in. My problem with my family is that sometimes I set like the editing filters too high, and like the hour-and-a-half movie is like done in 15 minutes. It's like, it was not a great story. So they're like, Dad, we don't even know what the movie's about. I know, I'm sorry. It's a little tricky to figure out. Okay. Here's something that let me see here. I've got my son coming up. I'm going to show him to you, but hold on. All right, I'm going to show you that later. Hang on. We'll skip him. Something that I want to encourage you to do as you have conversations with your kids and grandkids about tech is it's really important to not go right to the tech. Don't do that, do this. But to have some conversations where you are going to do what we call communicating vision. Communicating vision. In other words, why do you have these rules that you have? Why do you want to teach them boundaries with their gizmos? Why do you want them listening to certain music and maybe avoiding other music? Why? This is the whole question of communicating vision. If all we're doing is stop listening to that, why are you watching that junk? Why do you always take pictures of yourself? Why are you always on Instagram? Like if it's just this sort of shaming, don't do that, my guess is you're probably going to get a teenager who may develop kind of a hard heart toward what you're trying to say. So I want to encourage you to put these tech conversations in the context of future vision. Here's what I mean. Why do I want to teach you how to handle yourself on social media if you're a teenager? It's because I want you to have great friendships. And if you don't learn how to handle this, you're going to have really lousy friendships. You could do things that really mess things up. I want you to have a great marriage someday. I want you to have great relationships with the opposite sex. I want you to have a great sex life someday. I want you to be a mature, godly, happy person. And the decisions that you're making about tech and this online life are either going to move you toward that vision or move you away. I want you to have a great job. I want you to thrive in a business someday, either as an employer or as an employee. How would you like it if your boss went on national TV? Okay, think about it. You talk to your teenager, your son. How would you like it someday if your boss went on national TV and said you were foolish, selfish, and inconsiderate? How'd that make you feel if your boss went on national TV? He's like, what are you talking about? All right, well, I'm going to show you a video where this exactly happened. Antonio Brown, NFL player. It was a player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won a big game, and then they had a private team meeting because I think it was either entrance into the playoffs or they won a playoff game. And the coach in the private team meeting, after the win, said, okay, I need everybody focused on next week's game. I don't want us on social media. I want us locked in on football. During the meeting where coach was saying, I don't want you on social media, Antonio Brown was live streaming the coach's private speech to his page. So coach went on national TV and said
I'll be bluntly honest here. It was foolish of him to do that. It was selfish for him to do that, and it was inconsiderate for him to do that. Not only is it a violation of our policy, it is a violation of league policy, both of which he knows.
So you say to your son, I don't want that for you. So here's a grown man who doesn't know how to handle his online life, right? And his job is getting blown up from it. You're talking to your teenage girl. You say, this is not my vision for your life. Okay, now, here's the funny thing. They're all texting each other right now, okay? And listen, I'm not anti-phone, I'm not anti-text. We'll talk about that in a minute. But like when you're out with your friends, I'd actually like you to learn to talk to each other, right? And you can text me and tell me what time you're coming home or whatever, but I want you to have real relationships. Now, if you think that's sad, that we're all sitting around with our friends texting each other, here's where we're going soon. You just put the goggles on and you go into your whole other world. Here's a commercial for this. This is what they want. Watch this.
Yeah, Wiz, you coming out?
Go ahead.
So he's at a party with all his friends. And he doesn't want to go hang out with his friends because he's got goggles on with penguins. Now, look, I think that I'm a techie guy. I think it's cool, right? I think those little goggles are cool. I think they can be fun and it's interesting. But they're actually trying, the makers of the goggles right there, they're actually trying to sell that idea that when you go to a party with your friends, you'll have more fun if you put the goggles on with the penguins, right? And Meta, which is Facebook, is now on the brink, right? Let's build a whole virtual world for you so you can spend all your time in the goggles. You can meet your friends in the goggles, right? And I'm a tech geek. I'm actually an early adopter of tech gadgets and gizmos. I have no interest. I'm not going into the metaverse whatsoever. I like people. I like real people, okay? So I want to encourage you that there's value in a lot of this tech can make a difference and it can be a blessing. But we've got to have these conversations with our kids and setting it in future context. I don't want you to be at the party with the goggles on. I'd rather you be the kind of person that has real relationships. Sometimes this particular seminar, I've taught it with my kids. So my RW, who's my oldest son, or Lissy, and they are able to kind of come from a young person's perspective or whatever. And at a recent seminar we did at our kids' Christian school, our W, who was maybe 21 when he recorded it, 22 when he recorded it, just recorded a 5-minute video about tech in his life and what he's learning. So I figured I'd play that for you. And let me play RW. Here we go.
What's up, everybody? My name is RW Reno. I am a senior graduating from Olivet Nazarene University this spring. I am currently in St. Louis. My team just got down here playing some games, but my dad this morning asked if I'd be willing to just shoot a quick video here just to talk about tech, because I know that's the topic for the morning, and going through now high school and college, have certainly learned a lot just from my peers and even in my own journey with technology, and just wanted to talk, I guess, more from a student's perspective of two positive aspects of technology and then two negative. And So just to start off, two positives. So two positives, number one, would just be the ability, especially just with cell phones, to just connect with people. I have a couple of really good buddies, both at school, but also away from school, as well as just my dad and my brothers and sisters and all that, who I just am really close with. And being able to just shoot a text off and say, hey, thinking about you, how can I pray for you? Whether that's a text to my brother or a friend, or just being able to stay connected. I also have two really great apps, which I highly recommend. One is just the ESV Bible app. It's free to download. It's just the whole Bible on there. Use it every day. And another one would be, and highly recommend it, it's called the Daily Bible Verse app. If you just go into the app store, type Daily Bible Verse, it just pops up, and all it does is you just pick a time during the day, and it will send you a Bible verse. So at 1 p.m. every day, I get a Bible verse, and it's just been a great reminder for me these last couple of years that every day, like in a moment of the day where it's like right after lunch, kind of tired, like about to go to baseball practice, just to have the Word of God just beep on my phone, to have something to look at and to read, a lot of times really blesses me. And then another aspect, which I've really tapped into more about the last year and a half, would be podcasts. And I'm sure my dad will talk more about those. But some of my favorite podcasts to listen to would be Family Life Today podcast. Just have a lot to do to talk about marriage and parenting and just family relationships. And with getting married in a little bit more than 6 months, that's been an awesome blessing just to get some tools and resources there. So listen to those. Another one would be Truth for Life, which my dad would mention. Highly recommend those. And again, I just want to say too, overall, like technology, cell phones, smartphones, tablets, computers, everything can be used for the glory of the Lord. And so many times they aren't, but there's a reality that technology is very dangerous, but if used correctly and properly, it can do a lot of good. And it's just a matter of training ourselves and being able to teach then our children or high schoolers or college students to be responsible with the technology that we have and use them in positive ways.
Okay. Thank you, RW. I didn't tell him I was going to show this, so I probably should text him and say, hey, you just shared here in California. All right, let me talk to you about some warning signs. Like, how do you know if tech is getting out of control with your kids or with your grandkids? First one is the question of, is your tech pulling you away from people who are in the room with you? Or is your tech pulling your attention away from your family? I think Amy was the one who sent me these pictures, but an artist, or a graphic artist, recently took photos and erased the phone from the picture to show you kind of what people look like. Sorry. So again, the message here is not phones are bad, phones are wrong. The question is, are phones pulling you away from the people that you're in the room with right now? Another question is, have you fallen into the trap of always being available? Have you fallen into the trap of always being available? We really have to fight, and I struggle with this one, we have to fight this kind of modern expectation, and it's both ways. Like if I send somebody a text, right, and it says delivered, I better start seeing little bubbles, which means you're replying, and if I'm not seeing little bubbles, and especially if it says read, that means that you need to change that setting right now. Don't let anybody know that it was read. Okay, there's a setting. But see, here I am, like, okay, hey, I texted you. I should be expecting something back. This go both ways. It's not a healthy way to live, right? We weren't created for this boundaryless life, and I think the more we feed the beast of the instant access and instant response, sometimes we'll even have to teach our kids, well, so-and-so texted me, I need to reply. Well, Actually, that you don't have to reply right now. What they texted you about is not, an urgent sort of thing. Give that a little bit of time. So practically, what are some things that we can do with this? One is just having some times in your family when the gizmos are physically away from you. You might think about dinner time for that, where we just no gizmos at the table, not even in our pockets. Having time limits on gizmos for kids. Hey, you can have an hour with your phone tonight, or you can have 2 hours of video games on Saturday, or whatever it might be, that you're choosing a time limit. One of the boundaries that we've tried in our family, especially kind of through the junior high, early high school years, is that we don't want our boys texting girls and we don't want our girls texting boys. That's been a boundary that we're working on establishing. And even timeline with that. Hey, we'd really rather you not texting after 10 o'clock. Okay, that's a time to put that aside. And every family's got different rules. I don't have the list of thou shalt have these rules in your house. I would just ask you, what are your family guidelines? What are you trying to, we're all struggling with it. We're all struggling with what should the rules be and how do we enforce them. Another struggle for me personally, so I'm living this right now, our older kids, right? They're the ones coming up into those teen years. We learn all about this. We set all this stuff up. All right, we're doing pretty well with monitoring and conversations and things like that. And if you've got a larger family or a large range, by the end, things get a little loosey-goosey for the ones coming up on the bottom. And I'm realizing I got to do it all over again, right? I got to set it all up again. I got to have all the same conversations, and needing to not let the younger kids fall through the cracks. So my question is not, or my message is not, here are all the rules you have to have, but what are the guidelines and principles in your family? Could you tell me them? Here are some of the principles we have in our family. And yeah, we're struggling with application and enforcement and trying to figure it out, but you need to have your own set. So one of the things with Rush, when he was growing up, when he was younger, I should say, you're still growing up, but video games, we said, okay, video games are for the weekend, so video games can start Friday at 4 o'clock. Now, when he was 5, 6, 7, he didn't always know what day of the week it was. So he said, is it Friday, 4 o'clock? Is it Friday, 4 o'clock? Right? Because he's ready to play video games. Reminded us of this famous movie clip from What About Bob?
Baby stepped at 4 o'clock. Baby stepped at 4 o'clock. Baby slept at 4 o'clock. Baby stepped at 4 o'clock. Baby stepped at 4 o'clock.
He's got an appointment at 4 o'clock, and he's like, 4 o'clock, must make it to 4 o'clock. Reminded me of Rushbo. Okay, another warning sign is just mental health. Some things to pay attention to. Is there always some sort of input going into your teen's eyes or ears? Is their phone always stapled to their face? Are there always headphones in their ears? When they have downtime, do they immediately gravitate to media? I can't go to sleep, Dad, without my music on. Or wake up in the morning, first thing I have to do is grab my phone, scroll. The problem with that mental health-wise is the brain isn't built for constant input. You have to have input, and then you have to have self-generated thoughts, and then you have output. When JD, our 20-year-old, was a freshman in high school, he had an assignment from one of his teachers to sit outside for 30 minutes and do nothing. Amy and I were like, that is genius. What a great idea. Can you imagine in the 1950s if a kid came home with an assignment from the teacher? Yeah, my teacher told me to sit outside and do nothing. You'd be calling the school. You'd be like, what kind of operation are you running out there? You're telling me, right? But today we're like, yes, thank God, that's amazing. It's a sad state of affairs, right? So the issue is, like, from a psychological standpoint, our brains literally get addicted to the constant stimulation, right? The lights, the sounds, the bells, we start to need it. It really does function like a drug, especially the social media stuff. People liked my post. People shared my post. The endorphins in the brain fire off. We like it. We need more of it. So one of the signs that maybe tech is too big in the house is that as soon as you say, hey, shut that off, kids immediately say, I'm bored. There's nothing to do. Now, I've learned, we teach parenting classes, right? I can fix any bad attitude in a child in 5 seconds. There you go. They are happy as a clam, right? So now, because sometimes I'm impatient, sometimes I'm not a very good parent, that's exactly what I do to solve the problem. But I'm trying to ask the Lord to help me. See, if a kid comes to you and says, I'm bored, there's nothing to do. If you'll just hang on and just hold steady and say, well, I understand you'll just have to figure out something fun. In about 15 minutes, the dormant part of their brain that makes fun will awaken. And they'll say, I'm going to go out and throw rocks at a tree. Great, go ahead, awesome. You know, I mean, and it's will be. But if you short circuit it, then that dormant part of their brain doesn't activate. Okay. Another warning sign is spiritual health. You know, a lot of kids are finding like their self-worth online with those clicks and those likes. You don't need me to go into all the stuff with like the Instagram perfection world. It affects boys and girls, but I think maybe even a little bit more so for girls when it comes to their body image, because every picture's perfect. Maybe, you know, not only can you take a picture, but you can turn the filter, right, up, remove blemishes in my skin, remove red eye, like make me look perfect, slimming. And so they think that like when they look at themselves in the mirror, well, gosh, I'm a horrible looking person compared to all the things that I see my friends posting. All right, some parenting strategies for us here. Openness is what I want to encourage you with, is the essential ingredient, openness. And there's two kinds of openness that I want to weave through the rest of our time together. One is open hearts, and the other is open gadgets. Okay, open hearts and open gadgets. You don't need me to list all the horrible things that can happen online, right, with sin and addiction and perversion and all these things. All of those sins and destructive things, they thrive in secrecy. They love the darkness. Your kid's probably not watching porn on the living room TV. Probably not. It's probably going to be in a dark room, in a bathroom, somewhere in secret. Doesn't work like that. So darkness requires darkness, right? So what does God do? God wants to shine light on everything. Ephesians 5, 8, and 9. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. So I want to talk to you about both these things, open hearts and open tech. At the end of the day, this conversation as parents is not about the tech and the gizmos and the gadgets. It's about our relationships with our children and all of our relationships with God. So we face a ton of spiritual attack that comes against us having an open-hearted relationship with our teenagers or our preteens, kids that are of this tech age. So Satan and the demons are going to try to get rid of all the honesty, all the openness, all the trust. So having this kind of open relationship is going to require asking a lot of questions, right? How are you doing with your online life? What music are you listening to these days? What movies are you watching these days? What apps are you on? Who are you talking to? And if your teen resists and reacts and recoils to questions like that, you don't have a technology problem at all. Shouldn't say it that way. You don't primarily have a technology problem. You primarily have a relationship problem because your child doesn't want to talk to you about their life. They don't want to talk to you about the music that they love and the movies that they're watching and the friends that they're hanging out with. That is 1,000 times more important issue than the particular gizmos. However, the open gizmos are important. The thing that we're striving for in our family, trying to put it together, you have success, you have failure, we all fall short, but to try to create a culture in the family where our online life, where our tech life is open and out in the light. So the phrase that we use, and I want you to share this with your kids and grandkids, no one is holy enough for a secret online life. No one is holy enough for a secret online life. Do you care about who your kids hang out with? I'm sure you do. Do you care about who your kids hang out with online? Oh, well, okay, I guess I need to think about that, right? Do we know who they're driving with? You probably do. Whose house they're going to? You probably do. The same principles apply to these online relationships. Do we know who their online friends are? These are questions that we need to talk about together. So, for instance, let me give you an example of an open gadget. So I'll talk about the specifics on some of the tech more soon. But we use a service in our family called Covenant Eyes. It's been around a long time. Covenant Eyes is a web service. It has a filtering feature. And by the way, setting up filters in your home Wi-Fi, setting up filters on your kids' phones, really important. But no filter filters everything. It just doesn't exist. And if you think about something like with porn, for instance, let's just say you have a perfect filter that filters nudity, but it doesn't filter out the swimsuit, the bikini section at whatever store, right? So the kid is going to look at the bikini girls, and that's what he's using for pornography, even though all the nudity stuff was blocked. Does that make sense? So filters are good, filters are important. But I have, on my laptop here, I have Covenant Eyes. I don't actually have a filter on this, so it'll go wherever I want it to go. But it has a recorder, a tracker. So Covenant Eyes records everywhere my computer goes. And then every week, my pastor and my son and my accountability partner get an email from Covenant Eyes saying, here's where Rob went this week. So if I'm at the news site and the bikini girl comes up on the side of my screen and I'm tempted to click, I could click and I could go to wherever that link is going to take me. But my son's going to find out, my pastor's going to find out, my accountability partner's going to find out. So I ain't clicking on that. Do you understand? Like it is just not worth it to do that. No one's holy enough for a secret online life. We've got to create systems where things are out in the open. So let me talk with you about some practical ways to fight the filth. One of the scriptures on this, and I'm going to talk about this Sunday night, but 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee from sexual immorality. It does not say, see how close you can get to the line, right, without going over. I remember when I was in high school, the question for Christian high school kids in youth group was, how far is too far? You remember that? Like, how close to the edge can I get sexually? Like, I don't, I'm a Christian and all, so I don't want to sin, but I'd like to kind of get my toes over the edge if I can, right? So that's not what this is, right? What does God say about this ledge? Like flee, like run in the opposite direction as fast as you can. Don't mess around. Don't mess around with this. So the first place to start, real practically with your kids, is setting up restrictions on the actual device. Okay, if you have in our house, by the way, age-wise, if our kids are responsible enough, they can get a phone when they're 13. They can either get an old junky phone from dad's drawer, which we will activate, right? Or if they've saved money and they want to buy something fancier, then they can use their own money to buy that. The kids pay $10 a month after that to contribute to the thing. And the very first thing we do is we set up restrictions on the actual device, okay? So on an Apple phone, for instance, it would look like this. You'd go to the menu, you'd go to screen time, and then up at the top, it's going to say turn on screen time. And then over here, you've got weekly reports, app limits, content and privacy restrictions, screen time passcode that you as a parent would activate. So you've set up all the restrictions and you know the code in case that needs to change. I don't know Android in and out, so if you have an Android phone, I know those things exist. But you can set up downtime. You can set up, hey, this phone, right, shuts off at a certain time. You can set app limits. You can say what's allowed, what's not allowed. When our kids first get a phone, it's more of a dumb phone than a smartphone. It can text, right? Text the family, but we don't give them any social media. We don't give them access to the internet right when they first get their phone. We're going to see if they can get their training wheels on first and get that set up. If they want an app, then they come to mom or dad and say, I'd like to get this app. We check out the app, great, we'll get it. We unlock the app restriction. We download the app, and then we relock it. Now, with text, we're trying to create a situation where the child's online life is public. So how are we going to do that? With texts, what we do is we set up like a dummy device or a mirror device so that copies of their texts come in to that device. If you're in the Apple world, there's two ways to do that. One is, the way we do it is we share the same Apple ID. So Apple thinks that I have 8 phones. Okay, I don't, but whatever. So then we're able to set up some old device or some old tablet to say, I want to get texts for all these different numbers. And so, right now, I would never set that setting on my personal phone, okay? Now, you also have to know this is just your monitoring service for your kids. You're not replying into their text threads with their friends, right? This is just so you can kind of keep an eye on what's happening. The other thing to do, like let's say you come to the point where you want to give your child a social media account. Now, my 2 sons have had little or no interest in social media, so we really haven't had to navigate it. My daughters, shocker, more interest in having social media, so they both had Instagram. And you do the same sort of thing. You set up a separate device, okay? Or if you don't use Instagram, for instance, you could put Instagram on your phone, and you get all your kids' usernames and passwords, absolutely critical, no secret online life, and you simply log in as them on either your backup device or your phone if you never use Instagram. So if you open up Instagram, it's your daughter's Instagram. It's like a mirror of her online life. And again, you're not posting, you're not liking, because you're her. Now, don't do that, okay? But you can see what's going on, and you can have this opportunity to interact with her, ask questions, etc. But this idea of basically making sure passwords and usernames are shared, and this idea of just trying to mirror their life. Now, what that also means, what it also means is that we're not going to allow apps that were created for secrecy. Snapchat was created for secrecy. It sends a message and it deletes it on both sides. They created it so that people could send secret messages. So for our kids, now when you're an adult, you want Snapchat, that's your life, right? But in my home, no Snapchat, because no one's holy enough for a secret online life. We're just not doing, but all my basketball coach, that's the way he sends all of his messages. Sorry, we got to figure another way to skin that cat. And if I need to call the coach and say, hey, coach, can you send an email? My kid's like, email? I don't even know what that is. I get it. Sorry, but sometimes you have to, work through some of that stuff. We've had this happen a couple times over the years. Our kids' friends know. Our kids will be texting a friend. Friend will share something sensitive. My kids will say, hey, just FYI, my parents might see this. Now, we are not spending an hour a night going through every, right? But we're just checking in, and I need to do a better job of that. Amy's better at that than me. But our kids will tell a friend, hey, just so you know, my parents might see this. And we've had a couple of situations where one of our kids' friends is actually going through a really difficult time, and they say to our daughter, that's okay, I want them to know. Because they didn't have a situation at home, right, where they had engaged parents, would be a better way to say it. They didn't have engaged parents who were ready to help them. So you don't even know what kind of ministry might come from something like this. A couple of real technical things. Again, we use this service called Covenant Eyes. There is no perfect text solution out there. You have to just do some research. Covenant Eyes is out there. A service called Bark is out there. Mr. Pollack, those are both pretty good. For our home, we use a service called Circle. And what this does is it filters the Wi-Fi in our house. So if your teenage daughter brings friends over to the house, they walk in the front door, what's the first question? What's your Wi-Fi password? Right. So we give them our Wi-Fi password. You're welcome to get on our Wi-Fi. But Circle at least sets up some basic whole house Wi-Fi filtering. No filters, perfect. But there are some basic filtering that gets set up. So if our friends are over, we're not completely worried about where they may be going. Covenant Eyes has a mobile device, a mobile thing you can do. Circle has a mobile thing that you can do. But again, I just want to reiterate that the number one priority with all this is not filters. It's not the tech lockdown as much as we want to talk about that. It's, would God give us a relationship with our kids where we have a shared desire to please God? Would God give us a relationship with our kids where we can be honest with each other? What percentage of teenagers are going to navigate the world of tech sinlessly? 0. So what percentage of your kids are going to navigate the world of tech sinlessly? 0. So let's not be shocked. Let's not get bent out of shape, right? It's like they're walking through a world with, like, people are spraying gasoline and throwing matches all over the place. So they're going to get burned. There's going to be situations that go badly. There's going to be situations where we drop the ball as parents. So what do? We just confess that to the Lord, confess that to our child, try again, re-engage, and keep this principle forward that we want to keep our hearts and our gadgets open. Honey, can you come up and help me with some Q&A time? What would you all like to talk about? Some folks said they had a question from session 1 and didn't have time to ask. Oh, yeah, sure, please.
Is this on? There we go. I just wanted to add the verse from Matthew that really has, I think, speaks a lot to this, because Jesus says in Matthew, "Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man." The point in that verse, I just think it's so important, that sin, we all have a sinful nature, and sin comes from within. And so often, just in our own lives and even with counseling with a lot of families, we can get in this mindset we're trying to just constantly protect our children from sin out there. But we have to realize that sin, the things that defile us, come from within. So we pray for our children's hearts. And one of the, I think, the fruits of the Spirit that gets underrated is the fruit of goodness. Like, how do we create homes that celebrate goodness in a culture that they cannot see that, represented in our current culture? So, we want our kids to be attracted to goodness, and we want them to have good things coming out of their heart, and that can only happen through the sanctifying work of the Holy Spirit. So just having that mindset, we can't prevent sin from protecting us from everything outside.
Right. Amen. Thanks, sweetheart. Question, yes, sir.
Kind of comment on a question, but have you guys experienced this where when you actually put the boundaries on your kids and they start to see it and appreciate it, that as they experience these things with you, they come back and they appreciate it? Do you have any experience with that with any of your kids? I know we have, but... Go ahead, you do it.
Yes, we have. In fact, my daughter, who wrote a book it's called Understanding the Heart of Your Teen, she was the one who wanted social media. I mean, we didn't have, our son never wanted it. Our oldest, she was our second. I got on social media I never had Facebook before, so I got on social media just so I could track what she was doing on Instagram. My point is that she, in writing this book, not only in her own personal experience, but interviewing so many teenagers, they all came back with, we would never want our kids to have this at this age. And that was a common theme, and in her life as well. So yes, absolutely, that sometimes there is a sense of relief when you put boundaries on, because frankly, they're not ready often for what they think that they're ready for. So yes, 100%.
I come bearing gifts. So our daughter, Lissy, a number of years ago came to me and Amy and said, You and mom are always out talking to parents, turn your hearts to your kids, turn your hearts to your kids. Well, who's talking to teenagers about turning their hearts to their parents? I'm like, well, I don't know. She's like, well, I need to talk about that. So the Lord led her to write a book called The Heart of Your Teen. It's about the parent-teen relationship from the teen's perspective. It's really unique and a fascinating read. Who would like this as a gift? I did front row last time. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back row, all the way to the back, all the way. Yep, there you go. Gotcha. You're up. You're the farthest I can go, right there next to the, yep. I don't want to throw it, but you can come on up and get it. Thank you. Questions on this session, previous one, or just a off subject?
Actually, another, and this is kind of a recommendation, ask your kids to help you with this. If this is something that's kind of new for you or you want to really dive into this, ask your kids, where do you think we should start? And I would recommend you start more strict than you think, maybe even take a one-day fast so everybody can, except for the essentials, and everybody can kind of get an idea and reflect on, okay, where are my weaknesses at? And then set the bar really high and help them see that they can earn back whatever they thought they really needed with right behavior and right heart attitudes and relationship as they open up with the parents.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Really great suggestion.
Yeah, right over here. Oh, sorry.
Just, again, for parents who are looking, we're not all this tech-savvy stuff that, because when you start talking about this stuff, it's like, what am I talking about? So they don't know how to even start. So I was going to tell you, see Luke or Jason, don't see me. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's the idea. Find these parents who know how to set these things up if you're interested. I'm sure Luke could help you with that.
Amen. It's great advice.
Okay. I saw a hand over there. It's coming. Yeah.
I just have a question about, you were talking about monitoring on your mirror device. What is your timeline for looking at that, and how do you handle that in the busyness of having such a large family? I would just like to know how you handle that.
There you go.
That really goes back to that open and heart relationship. I used to monitor, again, you kind of have to revisit that. I don't monitor that very regularly, but it's good to know that that's there. So, for example, if I also think one thing we didn't really lay out very clearly is ages and things like that. Like, again, I wouldn't recommend any kids having tech devices that they can reach out to friends. I think that's I'm thinking 13 and up and responsible. But often it's the way that I use it now is more that, if I have my daughter, there's a boy interested in her and something like that. Okay, well, now I'm going to start paying attention to those texts. I'm going to say, what's exactly, and if I see all good things, I feel more comfortable not monitoring it all the time. Or if I see that she's honoring the guidelines in our home about no, texting after 10 o'clock, or, those are the ways they're just kind of that it's able to have that, so But again, it's there's other forms of communication. There can be GroupMe, there can be all these other things. So you just need to be aware this is just a tool that you're using. The most important gauges is what's your relationship like with your kids? Are their hearts open to you? You know what I mean? Are you seeing some red flags in other areas? Those are my big monitors. The tech is something that it's good to have a reference when I need it. That's how I primarily use it.
Right. That's good.
I have a question about talking to your kids about what their friends are doing versus what's acceptable in your house. Do you have, I'm sure you have tons of personal experience, but do you have, words you would use to explain how maybe other kids may have cell phones before they do, or they're allowed social media, and why, I know you said explain why our family is not doing that, but without making it seem like all the other families are doing the wrong thing, how do you communicate that?
That is such a...
Yeah, you go.
Are you sure? I feel like
yeah.
I'm...
Hey, I've been I talk the whole time, yeah.
I find that so important because I really think that it's so easy to slip into a self-righteous or judgmental attitude, and then you're creating other moms that aren't really good either, because the reality is we're living in this culture where there are a lot of different Christians with different homes, different standards. And so how do we say, for me, it's also in like bathing suit wear. That's a big deal. You know what I mean? So how do I present our
You mean like
standard?
your girl's the only girl in the one piece?
Yeah, right. Yeah. In many situations now, sadly. So, but my point is, like, how can I keep our standard without having them overflow into this kind of critical, judging? And to be honest, again, I often say words like, God puts you into our family, and there are things that you love about our family, and maybe you don't like this thing, that rule of our family, but the reality is when you look at someone else and their roles, I want you to imagine yourself being in their family. Like, is that what you want? Is that what you want, to be in their family? And because it kind of like
what if they
helps
say yes?
them to. I haven't had that yet.
That's the only flaw with that one. I mean,
but the point is, it just gets them thinking about it's a whole package deal, because we so want to like pick, right? I would like to have this. That looks really appealing. But that guideline or in that family comes from that family and everything that is in that other family. So getting them to really look at, okay, well, this is the family God put you in. These are our rules. And I always stress to them, when you pay for your own life, that's how I say it. When you pay for your own life, you can have whatever media you have. You can wear whatever bathing suit you want. You can get whatever piercing you might want. You know what I mean? And I will love you and I will accept you, and you can come, and in our, your relationship is most important. Our relationship is most important to me. But right now, we pay for, you're in our family. These are our rules. This is where God puts you. So get them to look at the bigger picture, not just the little things, So, because I imagine they're usually pretty happy. Most kids are pretty happy with the family that they've got.
Okay, that's great. One more. We can take one more briefly, then we'll take our final break right here. Luke's on the way.
At what point do you feel, I don't know, if age-wise or maturity level, our daughter's 18 and just recently graduated high school, got her first cell phone. She used to have an iPad that I monitored regularly and kind of stayed in our room at night. But at what point do you feel that you kind of have to just learn to just trust God that they'll make wise choices on their own without you having to really constantly kind of be questioning, or, hey, what are you looking at, or what are you watching, or what are you doing? I guess I'm trying to learn with her being 18 now, how much should I question and how much should I just let her learn on her own and trust that what we've taught her and raised her, that she'll make wise choices on her own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll start with that one. So I was at a conference. It was a young adults conference. I was speaking for the weekend, and I don't remember if it was just the daughter or if it was them together. It was the parents. Okay. Came up and said, we're having these problems with our 26-year-old daughter. Is it still appropriate for us to ask her to go to her room? I said, how old is she? 26. And so I'm, trying not to freak out, on them. But one of the big challenges that every parent has is making the transition from the different ages and stages. So if you treat a junior high kid like a first grader, right, it's going to exasperate them. They're going to feel very disrespected and hurt. If you treat the high schooler like a junior higher, if you treat the college kid like a high schooler, if you treat the adult child like any kind of child, it's going to go badly. They have to make the transition, right? They're getting more and more mature, but we have to treat them differently. Our relationship has to change. So the first thing that comes to mind, and I don't know your situation, is from 14 to 18, this high school window, have you been generally, big picture, pleased with her growth and her maturity and her faith and her relationship with you? If the answer, if you said yes, like I think big picture wise, I'm really pleased, then you want to be letting rope out. Because if a child is maturing and we're not letting rope out, we're exasperating them. Now, you have other parents who know that the kid's not mature at all, and they've dropped the rope. They're not even, so does that make sense? So if generally, here,
I feel with our daughter that what I have found up to this point, I've been very pleased with.
have you circled around with her and told her how thankful and impressed you are with how mature she is with her gizmos?
Yes.
Good. Good. Sounds to me like at 18, I don't know if you want to add to what I shared, that she's earned the right to be treated more increasingly adultish, is what I would say.
There's a guideline that's always helped me with all of these issues. It's not just tech, but that you always want to see adult responsibility grow with adult privilege. So, right, like as you get more adult responsibility, that should also include more adult privilege. And I'll just give you some 2 cents here because we see it pretty consistently. If you look at the default in the world setting, like let's say public school or even Christian school, like big settings, I often see the privileges going up way sooner than adult responsibility goes. So you get a lot of kids that have a lot of privileges, very little adult responsibility. But we also spend a lot of time in the homeschool world. We homeschool, we have a lot of family friends, and we often see the opposite, where you have a lot of kids that are very, very responsible, and they have very little adult privilege. And sadly, when those things are lopsided either way, there's often a problem brewing because it's such an imbalance. So I think that's always a good thing to evaluate yourself on, like where are we on the scale? Where's my kid on the scale? And is it time for them to, if we've given them a lot of adult responsibility and they have a lot of success, let's make sure they also are getting adult privileges as well.